ACCA, the world's most forward-thinking professional accountancy body.
Hi, I'm Neil Johnson, ACCA Careers Editor, and I'll be hosting this new regular series for the ACCA, Careerwise. I'll be getting top tips from recruiters and other professionals and real-world advice for successfully launching your career. Today, in the second of two episodes, talking to recruiters Karen Young and Gareth Cohen about getting your foot in the door, we talk about some of their CV pet peeves and safely navigating a job market in which finance professionals are in high demand. I wonder if that sometimes paints a false portrait, or it can hook people in thinking like, I should be able to get a job no problem if I'm in high demand. I guess what the pitfalls and perils of a situation like that when finance professionals are in high demand. There's obviously the plus side is that there should be more job openings for them. But I guess the question is, what do they also still need to concentrate on? Because it isn't a case of just because you're a newly qualified young professional, you're not just going to jump into your ideal role necessarily, even though it might be out there.
I think it's quite a complex world these days. And in some ways it should be so much easier to get a job, and in some ways there's so many other different things to think about. You know, how you're positioning yourself on LinkedIn, for example, on your professional profile, how you're building your network and your trusted recruitment consultants to help you. So I think that, yeah, in theory, it has been a skills short market and finance professionals are in high demand. But I do believe that you still need patience and you need to sort of trust the process, but you do need to be proactive in all things. You need to be proactive about your CV and working on that and adapting it on each application that you make. I'll cover that off now because it's one of my hot topics. You might spend ages on your CV and you think you've got it absolutely perfect. It couldn't be any better. But if you're sending that CV off each time without changing anything or tweaking anything on it when you're applying for jobs, you're probably not going to do as well as you might do in terms of getting the interviews. You must tailor it. So there's some hard work and preparation involved in that. And I think if you do that and you do that well, you research an organisation, you look at their values, do they match yours? You create a grabber, a reason for that employer to look at your CV through an application process, then I think you stand out. But there are a lot of people applying, so that proactivity and that putting the hard work in and putting the miles in, I think, is really important, and building your network and having those trusted advisors.
Yeah, I'd again agree with that. Demand goes up and down, but also the competition for the best jobs and the best companies is rife. So yes, you can probably you'll get a job because demand is high generally across the market. But if you want to get a job in one of the best companies, or if you want to get one of the roles that's got the best content and all that sort of stuff, it is highly competitive. Don't ever think, they really want me, so I'll get this job. They're seeing 10 other people that could be equally as good as you, because these best roles are very competitive. So don't drop your guard, prepare, just do everything you can, because you probably want to try and get the best job in the best company rather than a job in a not so good company.
And I also wonder as well, because a lot of these, all the roles, but I guess a lot of roles are looking for perhaps modern skill sets, where if you can bring to the table some technology expertise, if you can come with perhaps something that's related to sustainability, anything that's impacting businesses nowadays. And that's a lot to ask for a junior professional necessarily, even if you're at least aware of that, or you've had a little bit of exposure to it. That's all something that can also help you get the foot in the door, help you stand out a little bit, I'd imagine, isn't it? Because again, this is what a lot of businesses are looking for, are quite unique compared to even just a few years ago, quite unique profiles for candidates.
I don't think this is digressing too much, but I did an interesting piece of work, kind of curiosity myself, that what's a chief executive looking for in a CFO and a chief financial officer, and I looked at a number of person and job descriptions, and the ones around the things that I've seen for years and Gareth has seen for years: communication skills and resilience and commercial acumen and analytical and strategic thinker. And then I looked at recent job and person specifications, and bearing in mind a lot of people listening to this may want to be a future CFO or partner in a professional services firm. It was just really interesting because some of the things now coming through were things like change activist, moral courage, desire to do the right thing, passionate about purpose, creative strategist, but a lot, you mentioned there, Neil, that the sustainability, but linking to sort of values-driven organisations. I think it's just interesting to know that, and also to think like, okay, I might be starting out in my career and grappling with some of this stuff, but trust me, when I did a round table with some finance directors around how would they be prepared in an interview this afternoon to talk about moral courage and desire to do the right thing, and did they have their stories ready for those interviews? They also had prep work to do as well, right? So back to your point around, what's on the business agenda, that's a really good piece of advice of what's generally on the business agenda, what are CFOs and partners grappling with, and then how do you match your strengths to that in an early careers way. But that's a really interesting way to position yourself that would help you to stand out.
You've already talked about the importance about keeping your CV updated, adapting it to each specific job description, job advert. Do you have pet peeves that you just see around their CVs, their job applications, their maybe how they conduct themselves in interviews? Are there just some things which you just wish you could just remove? The same mistakes over and over again, or the same patterns over and over again, which you'd like to see scrubbed away?
Go on, Gareth.
Yes. Yes. Still the same things, I think. If you're listening to this, you're probably unlucky because you're looking to be in a finance career. So your audience is very detail conscious. They're auditors perhaps, or they maybe have gone through a different route, but at some point they've started with the detail, and they will always, people looking at your CV will always pick up on the detail. It's the first thing they go for. So make sure the spelling's correct, punctuation in the right place, have it laid out nicely, all that sort of thing. The way the optics of how your CV looks is important because they've got a critical eye and they will always look at that. And if a date doesn't add up or make sense, the person looking at your CV will spot that. I'll spot that straight away. A recruiter will spot that straight away. Karen will as well. So it's just get the detail right. And when you're writing an email to somebody, again, take some time on it, because the amount of ones that we still get coming through, full of spelling mistakes, no punctuation, you already build a picture of this person. And you're thinking, okay, if you're not going to take the time and effort to get this first interaction right, what's it going to be like when you're interviewing somebody, or when you're being interviewed, or when you're in a role? So I'm going on about this a lot because I think it's a basic one that people get wrong all the time.
Yeah, I'd agree with there's lots of things, the spelling and punctuation bit, and Gareth's point, it's exactly what was going through my mind. If you've got on your CV, I'm detail orientated, attention to detail. Gareth's point about the person that's potentially looking to hire you, that they will be detail orientated. Generally, people are looking for a reason to hire you. They're not looking at your CV or interview not to hire you, but that's just such a quick thing. Again, if they're going through, as we've said, quite a lot of volumes of CVs and applications, something as simple as that is in your control, and more in your control today than it ever has been with spell checking and all the technology you've got. Yeah, just absolutely get that right. And the optics, as you've mentioned, it's unlikely at this stage, but something to be aware of as you build experience on your CV. Sometimes people are then desperately trying to cram everything for onto 1 page or 2 page CVs, and they take all the margins out and go into size 8 font. And at my age, I can't read that very well. So just the visuals of layout and space is good. And I think as well, my final bit would be the adapting, the tailoring. It should never go off in exactly the same way. That can be as simple as looking at the job description and the list of duties and responsibilities that they're looking for you to fulfil, and looking at yours and reordering the bullet points on your most recent work experience in a way that, if whatever is their points, 1, 2, 3, make sure yours isn't 7, 8, 9, and you put your bit 1, 2, 3, so they read that, and it's a bit like a list of things you might want to buy next. You often put the most important things first. And final bit, you are you and you're unique. So kind of the other thing that sometimes comes through is just personal statements. It's hard, but make it authentic and think about what makes you you, and don't necessarily just start to use cliches in that personal statement bit. That's another of mine.
A practical tip, I think, as well, is I start to see more and more CVs that are trying to be a bit too creative. Pictures and logos and different formats and all that sort of stuff. Everybody works on slightly different operating systems and have different laptops. So your CV might look great to you, but when someone's opening it on an Apple, it doesn't look the same. Don't overcomplicate the format. Keep it simple, because it very often doesn't look very good at the other end.
And when it comes to sending CVs, would you say that it's better to focus on quality over quantity? Pick a few job adverts that you're really interested in, focus on the keywords, the bullet points that the advert is asking you, and meet that in your CV. Would you suggest that as a good tactic?
Definitely spend the time on the tailoring rather than creating pictures. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is difficult. It is a numbers game sometimes at the beginning. It is probably tempting to apply for 30 jobs on a Sunday night when you're sat on a job board. But just think about, go for the ones that are really interesting, that you really would want to do. If I got offered this job, would I take it? That's because if the answer's no, you're wasting your time and everyone else's time. Think about that as well, but also the follow-up. Because very often you're applying to roles directly, could be through an agency, could be directly to a HR team or an internal recruitment team at a business, and just follow up. Again, you'll be in the minority. If you've applied for a role on one Sunday and you haven't heard from them, and then you send them a note the following Sunday to say, I haven't heard back from you, I'm really, really keen about this, you'll be in the minority because a lot of candidates don't do that.
That's sound, isn't it? And again, it brings it round to that, being selective about the ones you're applying for and really giving them the best of you.
Be resilient, because it's a thankless task. A lot of CVs go into a black hole and you will never hear back. That is not your fault. So just keep going. I hear it all the time, I've applied to 15 roles and no one's ever got back to me. Sadly, that's the way it is because it's so voluminous. So just keep going.
I mean, on a practical level, it may be that you're starting to interview, and we've come through obviously a very difficult few years when a lot of things were done online and some may still be done online. So it's checking some of the real practical details. And it sounds a bit daft maybe, but is this interview that we're arranging, is it online or is it in person? Am I coming to your offices? And just making sure you know that information, because that could go badly wrong if they're expecting you to turn up in their office and then you're expecting to be doing something on Teams, for example. So I think that's really key. And because we had a period of time where people weren't having to do that as much, and interviews were all taking place online, you sometimes get out of the habit of, okay, where am I going? How do I get there? I'm going to go into a bit of a test run, because the whole bit of detail orientated and the career that you're shaping for yourselves in finance, being punctual, it's a very practical thing, but a really, really important one. And I don't think there's any interviewer that would ever say, well, I didn't mind that the person was late. So reverse of that is, probably do expect that there is some online element to your interview process. And again, the practical things we spoke a lot about during the lockdown period, testing it out on Teams, looking at where your camera is, all of those type of things, and getting comfortable and well prepared for it. That would be my first stance on that.
Yeah, I'd agree. Video interviewing is a big one, isn't it? Especially first rounds, and I guess a lot of your students are overseas. You're going to be doing a video interview at some point, and the basic things that Karen just said. Look at your background, look at where your camera is, look at the camera. Don't be sat in a room that's messy with your sort of cups of coffee behind you. Present yourself in the best possible way.
Yeah, and testing the technology. I mean, this still catches me out in my job. We use Teams at Hayes for the main part, and then I'll go to an external meeting and I'll click it, and oh gosh, it's Zoom. And then it takes just that longer to click through, and the wheel's spinning. I'm thinking I'm going to be late, and the clock's there in front of me, and it's suddenly X01, and those type of things. Just really, really important. Very basic, but don't forget the basics.
And then when you're at the interview, this is the most frustrating bit of feedback we get, and it's whether you're recruiting for an entry-level role or a CFO or a finance director role, we still get people saying the candidate didn't seem that interested. They didn't ask questions about the company, they didn't ask questions about the role, and it's a real basic one that you really should not let yourself down on. But it still happens, doesn't it, Karen? You'll get
it does.
People who've got 30 years experience, and you get the same feedback. It's so frustrating. Do your research, get excited about the company, and ask some really original, interesting questions.
And go and do some research online about how to write a CV, about how to do job interviews, because there's tons of advice out there, including on ACCA Careers. But yeah, we're going to wrap things up now. Thank you everyone for listening in. Thank you to our expert panel, Gareth and Karen.
Thank you very much, Neil. Thank you. And if anyone has any questions or wants any advice directly, please get in touch with us. Happy to talk.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having us. It's been a great conversation. And to the listeners, show them what you're capable of. Your chance to shine.
That's all for me, Neil Johnson. Thank you very much. Until next time. Thanks for listening. For more career advice, check out the ACCA Careers website and the Student Accountant app. And if you have something in particular you'd like me to cover in the series, get in touch at studentaccountant@acccaglobal.com.
This podcast was brought to you by ACCA. Find out how we think ahead at acccaglobal.com.